Hey guys, it's Cassandra from Beads to Live By. How's everybody doing tonight? Just trying to get myself situated here so I can spend some time with you all. I'll make sure I'm back over where I can see your comments. Sipping on my bubbly water. Recently got a few flavors from all of these for those of you that partake in the sparkling beverages. That has been enjoyable. I am always up for a good deal, and the flavors seem to be, they're simple. They're not like all these crazy, sangria or whatever, but the grapefruit and I think it was blackberry were yummy. So if you are joining us and you saw the hubbub earlier this week, I posted a little poll, sort of. I did a poll in our stories, but then I did just an informal poll on a couple of Facebook and Instagram posts asking what kind of two-hole bead people wanted me to work with. And we have such a good variety from our years of curated collections and subscriptions that we've done. So I wanted to kind of feature some of those. And I've got a few options here. I'm going to have to decide which colorway to go with tonight because I didn't really make a decision about that before I came live on camera. But I was going to come up with a new project, and then I went to look for pictures to post. This is all like real life, real talk here. I was looking for pictures to post to basically publicize the fact that the pyramid was the winner of the poll. And I came across this bracelet picture and I was like, gosh darn it, I'm pretty sure I have not done a tutorial on this yet, even though I did this project. So this is our pyramid bead, and then it's surrounded by, we've got the size 10 matte tubo cylinder beads. So it's, a lot of people call them delicas just by default because of the shape, but a delica is actually a, so Mayuki is the brand. Delica would be like the subsidiary brand or the name of that bead under that brand. And then the actual shape of the bead is a cylinder bead. So when you talk about seed beads, a lot of them are rounded off and look more like a sphere, not completely like a donut. They look more like a donut. That's a fair description. And with these, they're cylindrical, so they're like a tube. And the Japanese have a beautifully, very precise process created to make the cylinder beads, the delicas. But Tubo is another brand, and they happen to be a Czech brand. I've visited the factory a couple of times. I'll be going back in April. And they have beautiful cylinder beads. And this size 10 is like a fun, chunky. They look chunky compared to a size 11 because size 11 cylinder beads are so tiny. But we really love these beads. I bought so many of them the first time we went, which would have been in 2023. And then I think that would have been the first time we visited the factory because I've been to the Czech Republic 3 times. The first time I was there, I did not get to go to Mettubo, but these cylinders in the size 10 just felt like a nice, felt like the delicas would have been too delicate looking in this type of a design, whereas the size 10 act more like a joint. So I love making jewelry with beads that ends up looking more like it's real or costume jewelry of some kind. And this kind of gave this the feeling of like there was some substance between the beads. And then I just used 15s to create the the edging. Otherwise you'd have some thread showing, and it worked out nicely to have something to fill in. So that is the majority of your what you will be working with: a size 10 cylinder, a pyramid, and a size 15 seed bead. The 15s, depending on what brand you have, we mostly work with Japanese 15s. So I've even noticed with the Czech 15s that they're similar to several of the newer Czech seed beads, I should say. Vintage, you might run into some variation, but the counts is what I was trying to get at along the edges might vary depending on what brand you're using of a 15. But generally speaking, what we're instructing on tonight should work, the same as what we've got in our sample here. We'll go over the closure attachment. Of course, we have our favorite ball and socket clasp. So easy to use, but very sturdy. We love those guys. And I mean, I made 2 of these when I created the bracelet, but I really feel like I could go for more even. Oh, okay. So some of you are out here, and it looks like the comments are not working properly. So I apologize. I'm going to go on with the live video because I don't want to mess anything else up, but I'm sorry that you guys can't say hello. And I think that was Dana. Dana, you rock. I appreciate you cluing me into the fact that I was like, gosh, I see a lot of you watching and I don't have anybody chit-chatting with me, but it makes sense if there's some kind of issue with YouTube. So I'm not seeing anywhere that I can fix this. I was hoping that maybe there was something I could do, but it sounds like it might just be a YouTube problem. So not you, but YouTube problem. Thank you again, Dina, for that tip. I really appreciate knowing, because I would have really started to wonder in the next 10 minutes why there was 0 commentary from my audience. You guys are always nice and chatty, which I prefer, because otherwise I'm just talking into the void out here. But maybe it'll just pop up and let us talk sooner than later. Otherwise, I'll have to get live on Facebook later this week so we can chit chat. So yes, we talked about the 3 kinds of beads we're using in the project. I've got different color options. So since I can't ask you guys, because I was going to ask you guys to choose for me, I have a lot of turquoise. I'm not going to work with the turquoise, but I've got a pretty combination of beads set aside for that. So we'll show you that combination. I am going to work with this eggplant color. I think I call it pastel eggplant. I have a lot of things that revolve around colors in this family that I wear. So I guess since winter is not over for a minute, I'll work in that. But I pulled this periwinkle, and I'll show you guys some of the colors I think that would go nicely with it. This matte periwinkle color is I'm seeing a lot of, it's somewhere between periwinkle and a sky blue in interior design this spring and summer. So I pulled this out just as something to suggest for people who are they enjoy keeping an eye on the trends. But yeah, those are 3 of 12. We actually have more pyramids on the website, but the link, which is in the QR code here, or if you go to the website, you click on curated collections as the tab, and then you scroll, use the filter. I don't know if there's another word for it, depending on whether you're on a computer or your phone. It might call it a filter, or it might call it sort by, but there's an option to like look at different parts of a tab. So like the part you want to look at is the two hole beads or two hole something or other, but you can totally ignore all of those instructions by just using your phone to go to that link in the picture there. And then I am gonna grab the link commenting myself and see if that like does anything. So can you guys see my comments? I know you can't answer me potentially, but that would be interesting if it wasn't even letting me comment on the video. Oh goodness. So I'm trying to thread my needle. I should do it on camera so you guys can see how hard it is. I didn't flatten the end of my thread down, that's why. Oh, that's such a bummer, guys. I apologize for the technical issues, whatever is happening. And apparently it's bleeding over into my ability to thread my needle. There we go. So the real key for me is like I get that thread so that it's barely, I know I'm using my needle to demonstrate. Like you want to get that thread so that like it's between the fleshy parts of both your like first finger and thumb, and you pull it down so you can barely see the end. You probably can't see it on camera right now. And then you lower the eye of your needle over that. Your fingers work to stabilize the thread so that it holds it in place and your needle can actually, the eye of your needle can actually go over it. I was about to use my good thread shears for cutting a piece of plastic. Don't do that. Make sure and follow your grandmother's instructions for any of you that had mothers or grandmothers who did were seamstresses. There were fabric scissors. And although I'll like periodically use a scissor for something for something other than what it was intended, that's what I was trying to say. Generally you want to like use your wire cutters for wire, your thread shears or scissors for thread, and find something else to cut your plastic, preferably like a really kind of crappy pair of scissors so that you're not dulling a good pair. All right, so I think this might be called caramel luster. This is the Matubo cylinder bead, and then I believe this is coral luster. This is a 15. So the 15s and the so the size 15 seed beads are under their own filter under the seed bead section, and then same thing for the Matubo 10 cylinders. You can also search any of these names or numbers, and the website's pretty good about like pulling up the right options for you. Okay, I'm going to be talking into the void tonight, it looks like. Leave my finished piece here as a guide. So I feel like I had, okay. It's like I thought I knew what I did to make this. I intended to do a little bit more studying before I began. This is going to end up looking a little fallish, I think, because of some of the darker colors, but this caramel luster is pretty transparent, so I don't think it's going to be terrible. I also think a stop bead is in order. So I'm going to string 115 onto my thread, and I'm going to go down and go back through the 15. So that's from the tail towards the needle end. I've got like a piece of hair stuck to me, so I'm trying to get rid of that. And you don't have to go crazy with your tail, but I say like 10 to 12 inches, especially if you don't quite know what you're doing about the clasp, or if you want to leave room for like a little bit of sizing adjustment, because sometimes it's just real easy to like add or subtract from the ends instead of having to add one more section on your piece. That's just me. So for this first pyramid, it does not matter which side we go into on our holes. There are 2 holes. We're just going through one right now. Subsequently, moving forward, you're going to need to pay attention to that. So unfortunately, I chose a 15. That's the same color as my skin roughly, but we're going to add 3 15s and we're going to take our needle. We're coming out of this hole on this side of the pyramid and we're going to go through the other hole, but we're going to start from the side of the pyramid we're coming out of. So that's going to look like this once you pull everything down. And this is size, or this is not size. This is 10-pound wildfire. So there's like, of course, the millimeters are worn off on this. The diameter of it, I'm not sure. I just know the only size of wildfire I work with is the 10-pound. The heavier one's too thick for what we make for the most part, and the thinner one is like way thinner than this and acts very different. So the 10-pound is our preferred weight. So that stop bead we're just going to ignore. We're not going to use it for any part of the start of this bracelet. We'll go back to it later and deal with it when we're ready. I am going to add 3 more 15s. I'm coming out of the side that my stop bead is on. So I'm coming out of the hole across from the stop bead. I'm going to go through the hole that the stop bead is at. And that's going to, when you pull all your thread down, look like so. And then we're going to take a little peek at our project. So there's 3 at each hole, and then I think we did, 2 coming off of. So basically, because 2-hole beads are a little bit of a special sort of creature, you have to kind of work to make things happen differently than you do with a single hole bead or seed beads. So we're coming out of that hole where my thread is hitting my finger, and we're going to go through those 3 15s closest to that. We're creating a little bezel. We'll use that term loosely all the way around this pyramid so that we can eventually start adding more sections to the bracelet. So I'm now stringing on 2 size 15s, 3 size 10 cylinders, and 2 15s. So I've got a total of, quick math, 7 beads on my needle, but it's like 2 3 2. And we're on the same side that we're coming out of. So our thread's coming out of those 3 15s. We're going to go through the other 3 15s. So we've been doing lots of U-turns. Threads coming out on the bottom of the screen currently, and we're going through on the top 3. I think this is gonna, those 15s I think are gonna make it a little springier than it could have been. We're gonna repeat that step with the quantities added. So 2 3 2. And then we're gonna go through probably as many 15s as you want to. So our thread's coming out over here, again, just ignoring that stop bead. And we're going to go through these. Now, as with many projects, the first stitches that you do are going to be a little different than the rest. This is like you're getting it set up so that you can continue to add future sections. So I'm going to keep moving around my project. I'm going to leave this tail down on this end. That'll be for adding the clasp in a little bit. And then I'm going to go through. So I'm coming out of those. I'm going to go through all 3 of the size 10 cylinders. So we're right there. Now, I'm going to experiment a little bit for the sake of making this easier on you guys, because I think the easiest thing to do would be what I'm thinking I want to do. Part of adding future 2-hole beads and how to make this easy on yourself is I'm holding or placing the beads so that the holes are sitting along the edges. And that shows me that from this position over here on the left where my thread is, I want to go through the first set of holes. I've got 2 15s on my needle, and I'm going through the first set of holes like this. But that's because of where my thread was coming out, if you pay attention to that placement. And I'm going to add 2 more 15s, and I'm going to move through those 3 cylinder beads. I'm pulling everything pretty taut. If you use a thinner thread, even the 10-pound fire line, I feel like is thinner than the 10-pound wildfire. So in a project like this, I really push for like this thread. Just my preference, but I think it works a little bit better. So I'm going to go through those 15s. And then I think I want to go through, okay. So I'm showing it from the back, so it's a little bit easier. This is the flat side of the pyramids. I'm going to go through the whole of the pyramid, and I'm going to add 3 15s on each side of these holes. So start with 3 beads and go through the section that, or you're going through the upper hole that you haven't used yet, and it's coming from the side that your thread was coming out of. And then 3 more 15s, and we're going to go through this way. Again, making a U-turn is a pretty common place situation here. It's starting to look the same, but in order to make everything sit the way our first section did, I'm coming out over here. I'm going to go through these 3 15s. I'm going to add 2 15s, 3 cylinder beads, and 2 more 15s. So I've got those 7 beads on again. Now I'm going to go down this side of my beads from that first few steps on this pyramid all the way. So you're going through 5 15s all the way down to the cylinders from the previous connection. We're going to go through those cylinders. So regardless of where you had thread going in and out of this portion before, once you complete these passes, the thread will be mimicking the path from your previous first pyramid. So once I go through those cylinders, I'm going up through, this time it's going to be through 7/15s, all the way up the other side. And then before we do anything else, we're just going to slide through those cylinders. Oh, I can't wait to get a picture and better lighting of these colors. They're really pretty. It's going to go with a lot of things. And I think it's something that can transition from anywhere in the spring to the fall pretty well. I'm super excited about it. I'm going to create one more section so you guys can see that whole process start to finish. And then I'm going to show you guys how to attach the clasp. And the clasp attachment is not anything fancy. It's just, I think it'll be nice for you to see the process so that there is some continuity, because there's a few little tricks that make this attachment just like look finished, which I like. Okay, my thread is coming out on the left-hand side again. So if I set my pyramid with my holes on the edges, left and right, then I know I want to go through this side of the first hole. And you don't have to pick it up awkwardly like that, but I like to show you kind of like how it looks when it's laying down so that you don't have to wonder what's happening. So we've got those 2 15s over on that side, the pyramid, and then 2 more 15s. And we're going to go through those 3 cylinder beads. And although repetition can be boring, it also can be very meditative. So don't write off a project just because there's a bit of a repeat to it. We're going to go through those 2 15s that we started by adding in that part. And then I'm going to pull everything a little taut and go through the pyramid like so. So you're coming out of the hole on the pyramid closest to where you've got a bunch of beads already. We're going to put 3 more 15s on our needle, if you can see. There we go. Go through the same side of the pyramid, but the hole that was open. 3 more 15s. Now we're down on this side of the pyramid. We're going to go through that hole. I keep flipping it so that you can see how to work with something without it sitting in the same position the entire time, because it's not realistic to hold it that way. But I'm right-handed, so I'm always flipping so that the part that I'm working on is facing my right hand for the most part, if that makes sense. So threads coming out of that hole, I'm going to go through those 3 15s. And then we're going to add 2 more 15s, 3 cylinder beads, and 2 more 15s. I have to figure out what color clasp to use because I had not grabbed one yet. Somebody in one of my videos that I was working with was super clever and always kept like little dish of findings on their desk. And I think about that all the time, but don't do it. All right, I've got those 7 beads on my needle. I'm going through 5 15s on this. My thread's coming out over there, so I'm going through those 15s. And this is doing 2 things. It's adding the beads to this end of the pyramid, and it's also reinforcing this area so that the beads have a continuous thread going through them all, just like you did at the beginning. I continued through those cylinder beads, and now I'm going to work up. This side still has some gaps in it. You can see where the thread does not connect. So we're going to go through the last few things like so. All right. Such a nice little section. Now, looking at it like this, it's worth pointing out that you could do a little section like this and use it with other pieces of design, or so you could use it as a section of a bracelet or a necklace. This would make a great component for an earring. Like you do 3 of those and then do some kind of decorative drop or like a larger check glass bead above it. And you could, create connection points similarly to what we're going to do with how we attach the clasp. But for now, I'm going to grab my stop bead. So the magic of the stop bead is you can just grasp the bead and pull it off your thread, but it was enough to like hold that thread in place for the beginning of the project. And then we're gonna thread the needle, maybe. Look at that first try. That other end of the thread was just giving me all sorts of heck. And then because my thread is coming out of the hole right here, I'm just going to go through these 215s because that would be the same thread path as the rest of the bracelet. And then we're going to come through all 3 of those cylinder beads. And I just need to grab a clasp. As I pointed out, not having one set aside was just, kind of silly. And hopefully, I've got all sorts of copper findings in here, but I'm really hoping that I've got a copper ball and socket, because even though I try to keep that kind of stuff on hand in my home stash, I don't always achieve that goal. So the other option, I think, is going to just be like a gold or a brass or something. So we'll go with that since I don't want to hold up the party here. Well, then I went into the wrong section to grab. There we go. I think a darker brass is going to be better than like a brassy gold with these colors. You guys get to hear all my little noises of my bead storage, my findings storage, actually. Yeah, copper would have been a little softer, but I can live with this. So coming out of the edge of the 3 cylinders, we're going to add, according to my sample, I did 5 size 15s. And then I'm going to add 1 cylinder bead. So you've got 6 beads on your needle there. It does not matter which side of the clasp you start with, but you just want to go through one end of the clasp. And when you pull everything down, I like to pull it nice and tight to I'm holding my clasp so that nothing goes through that hole, just in case the beads are small enough to do so. And you want to go back through only the cylinder, and we're coming from the clasp side towards the beadwork. So that's like so. And then you're going to add 5 more 15s, or if you used a larger quantity or smaller quantity, you want to match what you did on the other side. And your needle is going to go through. So like you started off coming out of that end, you're going to go through this end of those 3 cylinder beads. And when you pull everything taut, you're going to have this nice little, I don't mind that brass with especially with those cylinders. I think that looks good. Little vintage vibes. So I like to have a little bit of extra security. I'm going to go through everything again. So you pay attention to the fact that you were on the side of the bracelet when you started, because once you go through that cylinder and come through your clasp, you really wouldn't know theoretically which direction you were coming from. And to truly reinforce it, you want to go down the side that you went down the first time. So like in the first pass. You want to replicate that triangle in its entirety. And then we're going to go back through those cylinder beads. And we're going to stitch through some 15s. I like to get like nice and far away from my attachment point of the clasp, which was this whole area here. Not far away, like multiple sections, but just like get beads away, beads worth of distance from it. And then there's a little thread here. We're going to see how this works. If I can catch that. So there's a thread between the pyramid and the 15 there. I'm going to come through under that with my needle and then create this loop and go through the loop. This is a knot, like a half hitch knot. We're going to do a second version of that. And then we're going to go through the whole of the pyramid. And when you pull that knot through, or when you pull on your thread and go through a bigger bead after you make a knot, you're going to get, the knot's going to disappear, theoretically. You can do this with like, if you're next to a bigger seed bead even, or it doesn't have to be a huge bead like the pyramid, but since the pyramid was there, it was available for that sort of work. So I am a huge fan. Like I did this for the video. I attached the clasp so you could see that happen in real time. And I might have waited longer and done more sections before doing that if I was just beading on my own. However, I would make sure that my bracelet was not full length or even where I thought it could be full length before attaching the clasp, because now you can more accurately size your stitched work and then determine, okay, I have this many pyramids, I have this clasp on, and I only need this much space to finish the bracelet. And that would be when you attach the other side of the clasp. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm so sorry the comments weren't working and you couldn't interact with me or ask questions tonight. I will post a picture of the finished sample. And if you saw your email today, I was thinking about doing some bundles with like the 3 kinds of beads you need and a clasp. And then you could have the option of adding on needle and thread if you needed to an order. But let me know what you think, I guess on social media, on Facebook or Instagram, if that sounds like a good idea. That would probably be Friday before I would have something like that ready, but make sure to check your inboxes if you haven't seen your email yet tonight, because I've got lots of information about things going on at the shop this week and moving forward this spring. So since I can't chat with you guys, I will bid you adieu. I'm going to go make dinner and I will see you all soon. Bye. Thank you so much for watching tonight. Enjoy your projects.